This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
So we have not yet made it through the pollen season.
No kidding.
But the days are getting longer. The weather is starting to thinking about warming up. Summer, signs of summer. The signs of summer are on their way, John.
And then we'll be in the middle of the summer going, oh my gosh,
it's so hot.
You know what I really long for? A brisk fall
day. And then the fall will arrive and we're going, no, the holidays are too close. Why do they come so fast? I mean, it's always something
It's all the stuff we wish for. And it's like, man, sometimes we just need to take a beat and just enjoy the day. Yep. Whatever type of day it is. Even if it's full of ragweed and pollen and nonsense.
Enjoy it. Just wipe the tears and snot away from your face. And enjoy the day. No, it's something that you and I both enjoy about springtime, though, is the fact that the boys of summer are coming back around. Baseball season is on, baby, and my Braves are starting the season off popping, so I'm taking it.
See?
I'm taking it.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just had, opening weekend. I guess the last part of last week was the opening week. Mm-hmm. And it was awesome. Yep. It was great. It was good to actually see something else on television since I have had zero interest in watching the last part of March Madness. It was so maddening that I don't have any teams left.
That's it.
At all.
That's it. And of course, then none of us really want to flip the channel to news networks because
it's all bad news. It's all bad news.
That's why we're here. We want to talk good news, John. Good news.
We can do that today.
Let's speak to some sports analogies in accordance to the work that you do. Let's go down that path because baseball, America's favorite pastime, it is also known. Turns out some of the winning strategies to the game of baseball and ways to improve our financial future, they actually align. So this is financial author Patrick Kelly explaining the idea.
I think people feel like they need to hit home runs or grand slams to win this retirement game, and it's not true. All they need to do is hit singles and doubles over and over and over again, getting on base over and over and over again, and never taking a loss. I mean, think about it. We're using the baseball analogy a little further. If you could hit a single every single time and never strike out, you're going to win that game.
It's an excellent point that he makes right there. So, again, comparing the work that you do to this baseball sports analogy, if singles and doubles win in baseball, how does that translate into creating a winning retirement plan?
Yeah, so there are so many things that are correlation. There's correlation between how baseball players make the Hall of Fame and how we as investors can have a really great retirement. But I think the biggest thing, talking about singles and doubles, what Patrick was just talking about is really just consistency. It's just showing up every single day and getting the batter's box. And people forget this. But Cal Ripken Jr., if you remember, Cal Ripken Jr., they called him the Iron Man. He was the shortstop for the Orioles, Baltimore Orioles. He set the record for consecutive games played, 2,632 games. He did not miss a single game. 2,600 games. This has spanned over 16 years.
It was amazing, yeah.
16 years. Yeah. And the crazy thing is people remember that.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that he was not really a big home run hitter. He was not like one of the most prolific hitters at the time. And the amazing thing is that he just showed up.
Yep.
He just showed up and just played the game. But here's the interesting thing, because a lot of people can remember Ripken and what he did. But a lot of people didn't realize that there were a couple interesting things that went on during that time period. So first and foremost, his dad was actually the old manager for the Orioles. So actually Cal Ripken Jr., his dad senior, was actually the manager. And in one game in 1987, people don't know this, Toronto was beating the Orioles like 17-3. I mean, the Orioles were getting their hinds ends just crushed in.
Yeah.
And in the eighth inning, Cal's dad takes him out. And the point was that, oh my gosh, you took him out. He had the consecutive innings played too. And Cal Sr. said, we're down 17-3. It's not like he's going to hit a 20-run home run. So what difference did it make?
Right.
So the point of it was, and the whole interesting thing is, even though Cal had two streaks going on, consecutive innings played in consecutive games, his dad knew which record meant something. Innings meant nothing. Games just showed that he was a workhorse. So when we're thinking about this, and when it comes down to retirement concept, there are some records that don't need to be broken. We don't need to hit, let's beat the market 5 years in a row. Let's don't do all that. What it boils down to is, what are the records we're going for? Most of us, as we get closer to the idea of retirement, should be thinking about, I just want to get in the batter's box and try to get on base any way I can. That means creating an income plan. How can we stay retired? How can we stay in this game or win the game? Yep. Well, getting on base is the number one thing, because you can keep playing a game, but until someone scores, you don't win. Income is how we score in retirement. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
So when I was thinking about Ripken, now the other thing about Cal Ripken is that at the end of it, after 16 and a half years of playing baseball, he did not have sickness. He did not have an injury. He did not have anything going on other than he went into the general management's office the last home game in 1998. I think it was September. And he said, guys, it's run its course. I want you to keep me out of the starting lineup tonight. The amazing thing is that Cal Ripken realized when enough was enough. So when he actually went in, again, it wasn't an injury. It wasn't an illness. It wasn't anything like that. He just said, I understand when enough is enough. And he took that day off. Now, that at that point in time solidified his record as the Iron Man of baseball. But amazingly enough, it was on his terms. And that's what a lot of us, we have the opportunity to do this. And this is probably the biggest correlation with retirement. Many of us have a hard time going, when is enough enough? 1 million, 2 million, 2.5 million? $500 million. What is enough? But then the main thing is
if you get to 500 million, let me interject. If you get to 500 million, it's enough. So hit pause and give us a call.
Right. You would think. But for many of us, it's hard to define what is enough, right? Yep. And then how do you know it's enough? And so the thing about Ripken is he set the record. He knew he won. So at that point in time, it was on his terms. So this is one of those things where you've been a small business owner, you've built up your business, and now you have the opportunity to exit. You can maybe even sell it outright and deal with all that, or you could give it to the next generation, or you could hire someone in to do what you do, and you make a spread for a while. But the question is, what is the next phase that we're going to work on? What is the next part of our life? And is enough enough? For most of us, it's pretty simplistic, really. There's 5 things we have to know if we're in the right spot. Okay. Number 1, we have to know that we have protection of what we've saved. It's great to have $1 million, but in case no one's noticed, the market's down, somewhere between 7 and 10% on the year already. Mm-hmm. So if enough was enough at the end of last year, it may not be enough now. So the question is, how much is enough? Where's your protection? How are you going to create income? How much income can you create every single month so you can keep living in retirement? Number 3, how are you going to keep more of it for you and not the government? And that's taxation. Those are the big 3. The big 3 are protection, income production, and tax design. After that, we just want to make sure we're giving it to the right people when we're gone, like a surviving spouse, our kids and grandkids, instead of it going to the government. And lastly is healthcare. Those are the 5 things that once we have those designed, we can then decide, is enough enough? Patrick Kelly was just talking about, hey, singles and doubles win. I would go a step further. Just stay in the game. Compounding works well over time, but we have to know when enough is enough. Because right now, I'm not going to lie to you, there are some storm clouds brewing out there when it comes to the macroeconomic events, geopolitical things that none of us can control. And so the question is, if we're really close to thinking about retirement, either we thought we may have done it last year, but we haven't done it yet, or we're thinking in the next couple of years, get the game plan down now. Go out like Cal Ripken Jr. did on his own terms, because he realized when enough was enough. You've already hit a record. If you can retire on your terms, guys, that is a record. It's the only one. You're not competing with anyone else. It's only you. So at that point in time, be more like Cal Ripken Jr. If you do not have a quality game plan that deals with protection, income design, tax strategies, wealth transfer, and healthcare, call my team. Give them your information. Let them know that they can be of value if they can help you through that. And then you can make any decision you want. But it typically starts with knowing when is enough and how can we get it done.
All right, let's talk about the term paper millionaire. Because if you are one, you might have a big tax bill headed your way and you've got no idea it's coming. So let's figure it out. It might be so. It might be so. Actually, this is very much your wheelhouse, John, because as, of course, folks come to you to figure out retirement, you have spoken before about all the various kinds of people that you work with at J. Hagan Capital and the big hole that you have found I feel like in the last few years about small business owners and what they're having to manage. And
it's unbelievable.
That's a real, we're looking at you if you own your own business, but really anybody that has, listen, you've made it this far. You've saved your whole life. You've got your nest egg. Maybe it's got a value of $1 million, maybe $2 or $5 million. Maybe your house is worth a few million bucks. You know you're going to sell it, downsize. And, let's talk about the small business, John. I mean, you have people coming to you. Sure. These are just good, salted there people. And they're like wide-eyed going, oh, my God, they're estimating $15, $20 million value.
Absolutely. We had a plumber that we talked to last week, and his name was on that plumbing firm forever.
Yep.
And 26 years worth of work. He's looking at an offer, and we got to go through it, but about $6.5 million.
Wow.
Not so bad for a guy who he tells me himself, dude, I never went to college, didn't even go to community college, went right to trade school, became a master plumber, and the next thing you know, here we go, $6.5 million. And he's pretty excited about that.
He should be. He should be.
Yeah.
It's his hard work. It's coming to fruition. So you listening, maybe you're thinking you're in some sort of similar boat, again, with some sort of asset. And the question is, are you a millionaire? Well, the answer is, unfortunately, sort of. So
sure.
You're called, or you are what is called this concept, the paper millionaire. So when you get to retirement and you sell that house or that business, or you are getting ready to tap into your never before been taxed savings accounts like a 401k, the IRS is going to come knocking in that first year with that we're really focusing on that big asset sale in that first year and turn your paper wealth into real income. And that's when that person can get shocked by this massive tax bill that you never planned for. The question for you then is, John, what can we do ahead of time to soften the blow?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things for any of us that have built a business, or we owned real estate, right? So a lot of people say, well, I've just got a couple rentals. Well, guys, that's a legitimate business. So when you think about those things, a lot of people that I've been talking to now, they're like, well, John, don't really know where the economy is going to go, but I've got all this appreciation in my real estate.
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to buy more real estate, but I was given a pretty good offer, to liquidate, one strip mall and a couple of the properties. And let's use an example. I had a guy about $3.5 million worth of real estate that he was looking at selling. And he was all but like, but the whole reason I haven't done it, John, is because I'm just worried about taxes. And let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Because when we're thinking about, okay, I want to cash out. I don't need all the money today, but I don't see anything yet that I want to reinvest in. But I don't want to let this opportunity pass by and not take the money in the hand. So $3.5 million. Now, we looked at all of his depreciation recapture, because these are all the things that our CPAs in the front end, they're not necessarily always telling us, because they don't necessarily know all this information. But in his situation, number one, he didn't have a very high basis. He paid for the property and he did a couple improvements, but he had a lot of appreciation on this property. So his cost basis was low, which means he's going to pay more taxes in the end, right? So number one, he had a pretty low basis. Number two, he had depreciated most of the property, which means that at some point in time when he sells that, he's going to have to recharacterize all of that depreciation and pay taxes on that as if it was more income. All these things went into play. And when we did this, Heather, it looked about like 38% was the taxes he was going to have to pay. So he was like, oh my gosh, hold on, John. So you're telling me, I thought I was just going to pay capital gains at 20%.
Yeah.
He does have to pay 20% capital gains, but then he also has net investment income tax, the NIIT, which adds nearly another 3.8%. Then on top of that, he does have state taxes he has to pay. And even though it's not really a tax, it's a recapture of a previous tax by doing depreciation recapture. So almost 40%, 38%. And so we were going through it and I'm just like, what did you think you were going to net? So Heather, in this situation, almost $1.2 million of the 3.5 was going to go right to Uncle Sam.
Wow.
And it was just like, well, John, when you do it like that, man, I don't know that I want to sell this.
Right.
We went through the situation and it really did come down to, this was really a tax issue. So then we explored the options since he hadn't signed it yet. And Heather, this is an important one.
Okay.
This is why the planning process is so often overlooked at the right times, because if he had actually exercised and sold this property or had the contract executed before we had this conversation, he wouldn't even have these options. But because we were talking about it before he did the sale, we were able to orchestrate a few different things. Number one, we were able to find out, hey, since he doesn't need all the money in cash day one, can we do an installment sale? So instead of getting, $3.5 million all up front once, can he spread it out and stagger it out over a few years? Can he do that and then also put it in the form of a trust, which gives him a lot more time, not just his life, but potentially a trust longevity to even pull that money out if he wanted to. Now, here's the interesting thing, Heather. It used to be that you would have to do a specific type of a conversion. You'd have to exchange real estate for more real estate. And this was a 1031 exchange. What it allowed you to do is to convert some real estate, essentially through a sale, and exchange that for new real estate. But my client didn't want more real estate. He was fearful that the real estate market was going to have a problem, right?
Okay.
So what we were able to do, though, is to utilize a trust and utilize an installment sale. By using them together, Heather, we eliminated almost all of the front end taxation. So he was going to save a little over $1.2 million right out of the gate. Now, essentially by doing that, we're just deferring a future tax bill. So then we had to look at other things in that situation. Should we do a recharacterization of some of his depreciation? The OBA, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was passed last year by Congress, actually gives us some really awesome new guidelines as far as depreciation allowances and things like that, which made it fabulous for us to consider doing this. So what we were able to do, because we actually had the plan, we actually had the process, because we actually talked through it, was the ability to not pay $1.2 million in taxes by making the sale. He was able to make, he is now able to make the sale of the property, put it in any investment that he wants, but defer most of the tax for the future when we have a true game plan on how he can keep most of that and turn that into retirement income. Now, Heather, the only reason he was able to do this is because he had an honest conversation with a skilled advisor who actually does not only tax planning, but understands trust guidelines, investment structures, and the whole point of how it all works together. Right?
Yeah.
So those are the things that I want people to understand, because when you're looking at the opportunity for people to take advantage of this tax code, a lot of people out there are thinking about winding down their businesses, selling some of their real estate, not because they want to, but because it's time. You know, it's time. They are at a point where they need to retire, and they need to turn some of those assets into income creating opportunities, right? So even if they invest in another business, most people think, wow, I just want to avoid some taxation or mitigate some of the current taxation so I can make great decisions down the road. That is an option for all of us if we know how to ask the right questions.
We started the conversation talking about this big asset and the idea of a sale. But for somebody who perhaps has not been their own business owner, or they don't have a house, but they have worked their butts off, and they have saved $2, $3, $4, $5 million, and now they've got the 401k. Are there any options? I mean, we talk all the time about Roth conversions and all these things, but maybe that presents some opportunity for more control, because you are in a situation where you can slowly distribute over years. Am I even asking the right question here?
No, that's exactly it. Even if someone isn't a small business owner, even if they don't have investment real estate, but they've got all these assets in their retirement accounts, the thing of it is that that's almost worse from a tax standpoint. We got the deferral for our income taxes, but when all that money comes out of our IRAs and 401ks, it is at our highest ordinary income tax rate. In that regard, it's a lot worse than being a small business owner. At least a small business owner does not have to pay often. They don't have to pay the total ordinary income tax rate, which is almost twice as much as the rest of us have to pay for regular income, right? So the understanding is, if you have all of that money in an IRA and 401k, you really need to talk to a skilled, holistic advisor that understands the tax aspect. Because right now, for the majority of people I see that have saved $2 and $3 million, they are probably going to end up in the 30+% tax bracket in the course of retirement. Now, if you look at most of these people, when they were putting the money away, they didn't even get a 30% tax break when they were putting the money in the first place. So it's almost insult to injury. But there are, I mean, at least right now, until the government has to, tighten up some more loopholes and figure things out, there are 3 or 4 ways that most people can do what we call asset shifting. Shifting assets from tax deferred accounts, which essentially mean tax every year forever accounts when we start pulling them out, but convert those into tax free accounts, like a Roth IRA, like some types of insurance plans that exist out there that can eliminate long-term capital gains and in income taxes. So those things, and then using certain types of trusts. Those 3 types of elements, even if we just have IRAs that are multi-millions of dollars, we can over time dismantle that ticking time bomb, that tax time bomb. We can dismantle that if we do it correctly, but it all starts with an honest discussion. The main thing that I've seen is that if you've saved a couple $1 million in tax deferred accounts, you understand where your income is going to come from, you can potentially save hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially even millions of dollars in taxes if you just make the right strategic decisions. They're not crazy decisions, but they're strategic on when you withdraw, from where, and at what points in time. That simple little formula right there is the difference in giving the government hundreds of thousands of more dollars or keeping it in your pocket.
John and his team, they're here to start this conversation with you about what your options are. Visit us at retirementsolutionshow.com. So I don't know if you've realized, but there does seem to be a lot going on in the world right now.
Is there really? I haven't noticed. I haven't heard anything on any of my social feeds or any of the 24-hour news channels. I've heard nothing about it.
It's nothing going on.
It seems like it's boring.
Everybody's really bored and just wondering when anything will happen.
I think what it is there's so much noise out there at all times.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten desensitized.
I think a lot of us have. Yeah, a lot of us have.
Yeah.
One of the big questions that is happening, and it's an honest question, a question that investors are asking right now. It's not just what's going on in the world, John, but it's how long is it going to last? How long do we have to white knuckle through this current circumstance? So market strategist Joe Mazzola was on CNBC talking about how that question, the longevity of it, is starting to matter more and more. This is Joe Mazzola.
Consumers are getting hit harder. And that is something that we're hearing quite a bit, is that there's concern around prices going up. There's concern around the geopolitical conflict. We haven't seen that lead to a mass exodus in equities by any means, if anything. And they're still looking for opportunities. But at the same time, the longer this drags on, the higher the prices at the pump, and ultimately the lower the discretionary income that's going to bleed out into the economy at some point.
We are still looking for the opportunities, but the question for you, John, is at what point does quote unquote writing it out just really become taking on too much risk?
Yeah, I think that, the idea that we have a good investment strategy and we stick with it for the long run, I think, and that means, this is where we're going to tough it out and hold it out. Yeah. That is fabulous in our 30s, our 40s, and our early 50s. Okay. No joke. Okay. Because at that point in time, if we are investing in our 30s, 40s, and even up to mid 50s, we should be able to be a little bit more growth oriented, a little bit more growth focused. We can handle a little bit more risk, even if we're not a huge risk taker. We can handle it because we have time. We have time. And so I think Joe is exactly right. To wait it out when we're young is smart. It's prudent. It shows you will end up with more money if you do it correctly. Now, something very different happens when we get to about mid 50s, because we're getting closer to when we may retire. I talk to people all the time who are thinking about retiring at age 58, 59, 59 and a half, whenever they can get access to some of their retirement accounts without having any kind of penalties, because they've done an awesome job saving. They have other income streams coming in. They've been tax efficient. And so now it's like, wow, John, when can I do all this awesome stuff? I'm like, dude, you can do it tomorrow. We just need to get access to some of your money, and that won't happen until 59 and a half. So the point is that when we're younger, we can take the risk and we can hold on. Now, when we get to that point in time, we need to rely more on our money being there when we need it, for it to generate an income for us to stay retired, right? Okay. Because if you talk to anyone who retires, but they have no form of income coming in, how long are they going to be able to stay retired? Not very long, right? So we have to have income is the ultimate outcome to stay retired. It's simple. So when we get to a certain point, 3 to 5 years for retirement, but basically mid 50s, we need to really start thinking of what portion of this money can I not afford to lose? And that's where protection comes in. So in our office, we have a 5-pillar model. Number 1 is always the same: protection. How much of what we've saved are we forced to protect so that it can generate enough income for our minimum standard of living? That's it. It's what it boils down to. So if you've saved $1 million portfolio, it's possible that you need protection on about $400,000 of that $1 million portfolio. So in those assets, that $400,000 that we need protected, we want to make sure that we have all kinds of protections in place. It's insured. It's safe. It's mitigated against risk. It's hedged. It has all the form of protections in the world so that we can't lose it. If we do that, and that can generate our income, we can live to fight another day. So in that example, on a $1 million portfolio where 40% of it, or 400,000, needs to be protected, that means that there is 60% of the money that we can take as much risk as we're comfortable with to generate whatever future returns we want, right? It's not complicated. It's really, really simple math, but every single person is going to be a little bit different. Some people will say, well, John, I don't have $1 million. I've got $9 million. okay, you're probably going to need a lot lower percentage of your portfolio to be protected to generate the income you want, right? So those are really simple things. But that is where I would say, hey, listen, if we look at history, 2000 was the year that the dot-com bust started.
Yep.
And if you look at the year 2000, if we were one of those folks and we were thinking about retiring in the year 2000, now again, we have, I guess, the great part of hindsight now, where we can say, oh, wow, I know exactly what happened in 2000, 2001, and 2002, where the market went down and down and down. But if we had decided that we wanted to retire in 2000 going into that, and all of a sudden we had the market correct like it did in 2000, it took all the way, Heather, until 2017 for the NASDAQ, QQQ. It took 2017, so 17 years for it to get back to where it was in 1999.
Yeah.
That's not a joke, 17 years. Now, here's my point to everyone who says, oh, just hold it out, you're fine. It did come back, but it took 17 years of not touching it, not messing with it, not having anything going on, pulling no income from it, making no changes whatsoever. 17 years that you could not touch that asset for it to finally get back to even. Now, what has it done since 2017? It's doubled twice. But the question is, if you needed to access some of that money or to generate an income from it, unfortunately, you may not have been able to. If you followed the advice of, hey, just let it ride, it'll all be fine. That's why we have to produce income somewhere. So when I see someone, it's never really a risk question on can they handle the risk? It's always a, when do you need the money? What portion of your money do you need to keep safe so that you can create the income you want in the future? And as we age, we probably want closer to our age. So if we're close to 50, some people may want to consider 50% on the safer side. If we get closer to 70, we may want closer to 70%, a little on the safer side. Doesn't mean under the mattress or all in the bank. It just simply means maybe when we want to consider more safe style assets or more predictable assets so that we don't lose too much at the wrong times.
Got it. John and his team here to help you understand your asset allocation options, boiling it all the way down to just income and proper risk strategies, the difference that it can make in your retirement. If you have got questions about this, we're here for you. Give us a call, 502-317-0840, 502-317. You can also find us at retirementsolutionradio.com. I wanted to dig a little deeper, ask you some more specifics about our options for those of us, because I do think at some point the risk that you loved in your 30s, by the time you're in your 50s or 60s, you start to loathe the options. But we do still need growth opportunities. So we're looking for something maybe a little bit sexier than a CD, and something that you've talked about. You talked about structured notes, talked about buffered ETFs.
Sure.
What are
principal
our
protected
options?
notes?
Yeah. Okay.
Insured indexing, option hedging, all of those are basically the evolution of the financial services industry and how they're trying to create assets that we would want towards retirement. And there's all kinds of stuff out there. Got it. There's exchange traded funds, which are very liquid, and often they're very inexpensive, especially compared to mutual funds. Some mutual funds do offer some buffers and protections, but there's really all kinds of stuff out there. The main thing is to never look for a product to fix your problem. You should always look for a process. You should always look for the process that solves not just today's problems, but future problems as well. That is what we want to do in our firm. We really don't talk. And if you've heard the show a couple of times, we don't talk a lot about product. I don't think that they're irrelevant. They're important. But to be honest with you, Vanguard is just about as good as Schwab, which is just about as good as Fidelity, which is just about as good as T. Rowe Price. Guys, when you're thinking about those names that so many of us talk about or we think about or we've heard about, they pretty much often do the same thing. And if the market goes down, guess what happens to most of those things? They kind of all go down. So the point is that how much of our portfolio can we afford to have a risk with? How much of it should we keep protected? And then what are the best ways to protect our money? Of course, there's CDs, money markets. You can use insured accounts where they will pay you a stated rate of interest, or they will actually give you some other portions of upside where they can index it to the market. There was a lady that I was talking to the other day, and she came in and she says, John, here's a story. I think that the current administration and what the president's doing could end up being really good, but I don't want to bet my life savings on it anymore. It's like, great point. Yep. So what do you think you'd like to do? Right now, interest rates have come down a little bit. Who knows if they're going to keep coming down, but we can get about 3.5% to 4% on completely safe. Some of them are even guaranteed type assets, and you won't have to worry about them. Now, part number two, if you think that what Trump's doing and the administration is doing is positive, and you want an opportunity for that, but you just don't want to risk your money, we can do what we call option hedging, where we hedge our downside risk by putting it with an insurance company or a bank, and we have zero downside. It's insured by the insurance company or the bank. But if the economy goes well, she could get up to 9% on whatever the market does. So she was like, well, I like that idea. Some people hate that idea, but to me, I think it's pretty good. It gives you the opportunity to say, hey, I got no risk, but in the event that the president gets it right and the economy does well, I can maybe get up to 9% with zero risk. Now, are there ups and downs to that? Sure. What if the market goes up 90%? Well, she doesn't get 90. She only gets the 9.
Right.
And on the other side, what if the market goes to 0? Well, she won't lose any money because it's insured, but she gave up the fact that she could have had that 3.5 or 4%. So this is why product to me is a little less important. The question is it what process do we need to go through? We need to figure out how much we need protected, how much income it can generate, and then frankly, how much of that do we get to keep versus how much do we give to the government? So those are the big 3 parts of the process that usually come into the fold when we're talking about investments with clients in general.
John, we haven't had a chance to talk about it on the radio yet here. It was just a couple weeks ago. You were over in Nash Vegas doing a little country radio. It's country radio seminar, right? It's CRS.
Yeah. So, it is Nash Vegas, too.
That is right.
I am amazed.
It's getting more and more every year, too.
I drove up, I guess it was a Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I left kind of early that morning. I think I got into Nashville around 10:15 a.m. on a Wednesday.
Okay.
I go to downtown near Broadway. There are already bachelorette parties on those pedal booze carts at 10:15 a.m. on a Wednesday. Heather, wasn't one of them. Dozens of them. I mean, there were so many people. They had just opened up all of the window type garage door type things. And so you heard all the live music, those very initial bands that were in there just getting their opportunities. It's unreal. As a matter of fact, I think it is a 10 times better version of Vegas.
Yeah.
And it's not as hot too.
Definitely this time of year. Give it a minute. Give it a minute. It is the South after all. But yes, Nashville has definitely turned into quite the destination spot. But you were there specifically for this every year all the country radio stations from across the country and record labels. They had this big to-do called Country Radio Seminar.
Yeah, and no one's ever heard of it because even though it's been around for 57 years, our group is the only group ever in the history of those 57 years to ever be invited that wasn't specifically involved with country music radio, which is crazy. And awesome.
You know what country, because a lot of it is a big showcase for a lot of the country music stars. You know what they need? They might need help managing their money, John. So I think you got quite the good place there.
That's exactly it. It is a pretty big deal. Most people don't realize, and I tell you, in the last 3 years, I have learned just a tremendous amount about, the country music world that it is. Now, when I grew up, my grandparents lived in the heart of Nashville. Right off West End Avenue. My dad went to Vanderbilt. My brother, my aunt, everyone went to Vandy. It was such a different world then than it is today. Yeah. I remember Conway Twitty would come over, when we would go to, it used to be called the Hermitage Cooker.
Sure.
Conway Twitty would walk up and talk to my granddad at the table, even though I didn't know who he was. The Mandrell sisters lived around the corner. Yeah. Brenda Lee, most people might recognize from Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, among other things. But she was around. And here's the thing, as a kid, it was all just completely lost on me. These are just, old friends of my old grandparents. Yep. I had no idea. Yep. But that's the way it was. Big deal. Now it's like it's like LA or Vegas. But at the same time, you never know when Kid Rock is going to be right there, or Gary LaVox from Rascal Flatts, or Blake Shelton was there this past time. Jason Aldean was at his own bar. Yeah. It's unreal, but it's a different world. It's a hot spot. So speaking of some of the country music royalty names that even whether or not you like country music, you know the name, Keith Urban. Obviously, one of the kings of country music. Great guy. You got the chance to, while you were there in Nashville, you got to hang out for a very cool conversation with Keith. Absolutely. And in that conversation, listen, when it comes to our inner circles, particularly at certain phases of life, we all have an inner circle, but we also know how we've learned some hard lessons along the way. I think almost everybody I know about who you let into that inner circle. And so Keith Urban himself, he was talking about how he has a very simple filter
for his inner circle and the people that he works with. It's ingenious. This is what Keith Urban said about deciding his inner circle.
I've always had great people around me. I've been very, very blessed to have that. My dad gave me lots of advice when I was a kid. He said to me, if you can, always work with people who you'd have dinner with them, even when there's no work to discuss. And I guarantee you, no matter how many people I've been blessed to have work with me in my career, which is a lot of people, every single one of them I would have dinner with when there's no work to discuss. That's almost like a given. That's the kind of person I want to be around.
It's such a great point.
Yeah.
It's such a great filter. And I know how you are, and with the folks that you work with in the office and the relationships you have built with people over the years. And yes, people might come to you because they're worried about money or whatever. But at the end of the day, so you've become friends with so many people. There's been so many glasses of bourbon that have been poured between you and people. Where it started out as a business relationship, it really has turned into, friends and family over the years. And for somebody who's listening to us on the radio and is thinking, you know what, this is my life savings, my precious nest egg. I need more than a plan and just anybody to help me through it. I need a partner in this space. What do you think it is? What would you say to somebody, whether it's you or somebody else? What should they be looking for in an advisor that would indicate that they are worthy of that trust?
Yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest point. And then when we were sitting there and listening to Keith Urban, if anyone knows his more recent history, he's coming through a divorce with his wife. He's been on tour a lot. There's been all kinds of things going on. He had everything going on with American Idol there for a while. The guy has got people coming around every corner. Wanting to talk to him, wanting a second of his time. So what he's looking for with anyone, and I think that it's really great because I had no idea where he was going to go in the part of the discussion when he mentioned what his dad said. He basically said, it's one thing to have trust. If you're going to do something in life, especially with business, often it can be a transaction. You're just going to buy a piece of real estate, right? And so you're looking for someone that you can trust to help with that piece of real estate. And they handle that. But they're not necessarily looking into the other parts of your life. You may not necessarily have dinner with them. What Keith was talking about is, I want more of a partnership, not just someone that is trustworthy for a transaction. I want someone that I can really bounce stuff off of because I don't always know what to ask. I want someone basically looking out for my best interest the way that I would look out for theirs. And the only way that you would typically know someone is if you broke bread with them, right?
Right.
You actually spent real time with them. And we did get to hear the stories, and there were people in the room that were with us that got us to be able to deal with Keith, who they were in his very first video out by the pool in Nashville at this old dilapidated hotel that they had just gotten the pool cleared. They were dancing around in one of his very first videos. These were people that had been with Keith Urban since the very beginning. And the craziest thing is when we went so not only did he give the interview, but he also allowed us to go into his new recording studio, which he calls the Sound. But it used to be the Tracking Room. So the Tracking Room is probably one of the most unbelievably sought after recording studios in all of Nashville that had basically fallen in disrepair after COVID, after 2020, where there were squirrels living in the walls and it had been completely destroyed and vagrants had come in there and messed everything up. And he told the story. He remembered when he had first come from Australia. He came right to Nashville. And in this one little area of Nashville, basically is where there's no skyscrapers, kind of right on the edges of Broadway downtown area. And that is where this recording studio was. But it was basically getting ready to be bulldozed to put a skyscraper there. And Keith said, I remember because when I went, it used to be a Shoney's motel. I used to come out the door of the Shoney's motel and look right across at the Tracking Room. And it was amazing. I told myself one day I was going to be big enough that I'd be able to record at the Tracking Room. This was in like the late 90s or very early 2000s. Yeah. And here we are, 2026. I believe he bought it last year or the year before. Keith Urban not only recorded at the Tracking Room, he bought the Tracking Room because he said one thing. No one else cared about it. They didn't realize that Dolly Parton, some of the greatest names in all of country music, had recorded there. And they weren't even thinking about that. They just wanted to go ahead and turn it into a skyscraper. But he had initiative. And his point was, I remember those people that helped me. I remember the people that were there with me. And I wanted to bring it back for all of them. I don't want a transaction. I want partners. And so the crazy thing is when you're thinking about, financial advice, A lot of people out there, whether they believe it or not, and listen, it's not bad service to our industry. It's just unfortunate. Most people have money managers. Most people have someone that is literally just looking at their quote unquote money. It's in funds and they're looking at those funds. How did they perform? Do they need to reallocate? And that's kind of where that relationship is. Unfortunately, they don't really have the right type of a relationship that we would all want. If you really think about it, if you had someone that just managed your money well, or you had someone that made certain that all of your decisions worked in harmony with all of your other decisions when it came down to, hey, how much of my money should I keep protected? How much income can I create? Well, what's the floor? But then what's the maximum amount of money I could take out every year? Not just this year, but what if I live to be as old as Methuselah? How much can I take? And how do I keep it away from the government? How do I honestly file my tax return, but keep more in my pocket and less in theirs? And by the way, how can I be certain that if anything happens to me, that my spouse is going to be taken care of, that my kids are going to have ample money and ample income and assets for them to use for as long as they live? And how can I just make certain out of all those things that if I have a health scare or I get a bad diagnosis or a bad prognosis, that it's not going to completely derail all the plans for my wife or my kids? How can I make certain that I'm taken care of, but that they're also still taken care of? See, guys, those are things that are really not just transactional. Those are things that almost do require more of a partnership. Someone that has a vested interest in you doing well, because you doing well is the only way that they do well. Yeah. That's the objective. That's the idea. Are they skilled? Are they capable? Are they holistic? And are they looking out for what you want? That is what Keith said. When Keith was talking about just trying to make it and how hard it was, but then going back full circle and saying, I remember staring at that place from the Shoney's Inn. And amazingly enough, Heather, even though it's not the Shoney's Inn anymore, that same hotel is still right there. Oh, yeah? It has not been bulldozed. Cool. And that door still faces the front of Keith's now tracking room / the Sound. And he can still, and his whole point was, I hope that one day some other kid that comes from Australia looks from that room over here and says, one day I hope that Keith will allow me to record there too. See, that is a partnership, not just a transaction.
It's such a precious place that you've arrived to after you have put in all of the sweat, the sacrifices, the years of working and saving. When you get to retirement, so many of us, we're very emotional about it. It's understandable. It's your money. It's your life's work. It's your life savings. At J. Hagan Capital, Jon and his team, this is what they're working with people with every single day. There are the growth advisors. There are the people that help you grow. But at J. Hagan Capital, they are here now to help you take that nest egg to, one, respectfully take that nest egg and work alongside you through this next phase of your financial life to help you create a plan that's customized to you, to what you want for yourself, for your life, for your family in the years ahead. That's what Jon and his team are doing every single day. They're here for you as well. So Jon and his team, they're here to start this conversation with you about what your options are. Visit us at retirementsolutionshow.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to Jon's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 1882794.